2035 and Disney's releasing their 84th Star Wars show and their 60th Star Trek show. You know, all they really like to do is rehash because it's safe. So they've replaced humans with AI because it is extremely efficient at looking at the back catalogs and rehashing. So all we have are the same franchises over and over and over again, but there's no need for human writers, there's no need for human actors, there's no need for human anything anymore because AI has it all covered and it's saving the corporations a lot of money. Now there's an indie scene and there's a bunch of rebels who still want to create artwork on their own, and they're making stuff, they're making games, and it's really cool. But the tech bros are making fun of them relentlessly. They say, can you believe that there are people out there who still want to draw and color and paint by hand, who still want to make games by hand, who still want to play instruments? We gave them text boxes that they could fill up with words, and then our AI could take care of all of that boring stuff for them. So culture is weird now. The mainstream stuff is really just repeating the same franchises over and over and over again, but it's extremely efficient now. Then you have those rebels, but they're struggling to make ends meet. They're struggling to eat. You know, people are just not doing well because this thing they call AI has put a lot of people out of work. Thanks to Whokeys for sponsoring this video. You can get 25% off Windows and Office with coupon code TS25. So they've got Windows 10 Pro, they've got Home, you've got Windows 11, Office 2021, 2019, and 2016. Putting in coupon code TS25, click apply, and then watch these prices come down. Wonderful. Once you're finished, all you have to do is click on your user account up here, go to your user center, click on My Purchase Orders, and then you'll see everything you've purchased right there. Just view keys and codes, then you can just copy and paste your key, hit start, type activate, click on activation settings, paste it in there, click on next, and you will be activated. If you're a home user, you're going to pay 10 times more than an OEM builder or a corporation or something like that. And that's why I like heading to places like Whokeys.com to get the OEM keys so I can pay a price that makes sense. So thanks to them for sponsoring, and now to our regularly scheduled program. What we're going to talk about right now is where these new technologies like ChatGPT and OpenAI are going to lead us in the future. And I think we can do that with a pretty good roadmap. We already have one from the social media world, because social media started off as something innovative and new and fun, and it turned into what it is today, which is pretty toxic. So if you haven't seen the first video, it's kind of a 101 level just explaining. So the way these things work is they get tons and tons of training data, and they're really good at predicting what text should go where. It's important to note that ChatGPT doesn't actually understand the content of what it's saying. It's not capable of true abstract thinking or creative problem solving like a human. Instead, it's more like a highly advanced predictive text program that can generate responses based on the patterns it has learned from its training data. It's pretty genius when you think about it, just this massive database, and you're able to talk to it in plain English, and it's able to look at your sentence and say, okay, I think you're looking for this information that I've got in my database. So I'm going to structure that in a way that sounds conversational and give it back to you. And it's right maybe 60% of the time from my experience. And it can really be helpful when it comes to programming, that kind of stuff, because it can actually write code. What it does is it goes into its database and says, oh, I've got some code here that will work for this, and it understands how all of that works, and it puts it together. But it doesn't actually understand the stuff that it's spitting out. It's just trying things based upon all of its database information, and it's throwing patterns at you. And it's genius, but it's not intelligent, and it doesn't have the capacity for abstract thought. That's not going to stop billionaires and corporations for going crazy and using this as much as they can, because there are a lot of interesting uses for this. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is something personal. It's a personal anecdote. I was recently traveling, and I was able to sit down and talk to someone who's an executive, well, actually a company owner. So they're using OpenAI, ChatGPT, and a few other programs to replace a lot of their workforce. So what they were very excited about was replacing all of their customer service with an AI generative voice model that is able to communicate with other people using actual voice samples from employees. And I was like, oh, how are you doing that? They're like, well, this is great. This is hilarious. What we're doing is we're paying our current employees, who are our customer service agents, to talk to the AI. So that's what they're using for their training data. The AI is listening to their voice conversations over and over and picking up the patterns and being like, okay, if a customer says this, I know that I can repeat some of these things, and I know that I can, say these things back to the customer. It's going to be a better experience than a lot of our automated services are right now. but you're still going to be talking to a machine that just sounds a little bit more human and spits out answers that are a little bit more human. So that's the goal. Now, what they're doing is really insidious in my opinion, because they're using their current employees to train the AI, quote unquote, it's not real AI, but to train the algorithm that's going to replace them. And they're also making them sign contracts. They're paying them, but they're making them sign contracts that say we can use your vocal likeness. So they're not only taking information from the employees and patterns from the employees, but they're actually going to use their voice. And then they're going to fire them. And they're so excited about this. Above and beyond that, they told me that they had fired a lot of their tech support team and replaced it with a few people who were very good at finding answers using ChatGPT. And the last thing they'd done, they fired 90% of their creative team and replaced it with a few people who were able to create very interesting artwork just by typing a few prompts into a page instead of actually drawing things out. Now, all of these things are where this technology is going in the future. And if you look back, several years ago, there was that meme where everyone was super excited about AI because AI could take over all of the really boring stuff, and we could have robots maybe in the future that could do all the awful dirty jobs. We could have robots take care of the sewage and trash, and we could have AI take care of the really boring stuff like customer service, where you're just constantly talking to people all day that's not very interesting or fun. Maybe some computational number crunching jobs, data entry. We could have AI take care of all that. We were so excited. And now the future is here, and the executives are looking at this and saying, you know what problem we need to solve? We need to solve artwork. That thing that people love to do, they love to create and paint. It's like medicinal. They sit down and draw stuff on a canvas. No. Let's replace that with this beautiful prompt where you can type in mountains with trees and waterfall, and there, we will do the painting for you. So we're replacing the artwork now. And this is not something that people ask for, other than the people who wanted to make more money. But the artists, the people who create these things, did not ask for this. It's not a problem that anyone wanted to solve, but it's the problem that is being solved. And there's one reason: money. When you look at where this is going, you need to ask who is in control of it and what is their goal. And we look at who's in control of the AI. It's all massive corporations and billionaires. And then we look at their goals. Well, they're capitalists. There's only one goal: next quarter's profits. That's it. The goal is not whatever's good for humanity. The goal is not the satisfaction of humans. The goal is not to enrich our lives or to make anything better in society. The goal is to make money. That's it. There's no other goal. And now we can look at the roadmap that we already have laid out to see how this may go in the future. That roadmap is social media. Because back before we had just a few silos, which was like Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, we just have these massive corporations that all the content goes through to get to us. Before we had that, we had something a little different. We had niche communities, smaller communities, and online, dial-in forums, which were BBSs. We had these. They were controlled by small groups of people who were not motivated by money, not always motivated by money, but they were motivated by whatever community they wanted to build. If they wanted to build a community that's just about basketball, well, then they would build one. And that was the motivation, to find people who were into the same things, hobbies, building awesome model trains, building Lego, creating computers. All these different small communities were all over the internet. And there are still some that exist to a very small degree now, but they were all replaced, and we joined these giant corporations. It became almost impossible not to, because all of our friends went there, and then we went there, and it seems like nobody really likes it or loves it. It's like we're there, we're on these platforms, we're constantly engaging with them, and we are addicted. And the reason that we're addicted is because they brought in people who understand the psychology of these things and said, okay, if we tune our algorithms this way, it will get more hits and we will make more money. They didn't stand back and say, Will this be good for society? Will this be good for our mental health? Will this be good when it comes to pushing us forward into the future? Will this be a good way to share facts and information? They did not ask those questions. They said, what will make us money? And it turns out that if you're angry, you'll stay online and yell at each other all day. So now the algorithms, they push outrage and misinformation all day long. And that's where we are. We're just in this cycle. It's made us toxic towards one another. We don't like each other anymore. We're constantly arguing. And a lot of those smaller, nasty niche communities that should have just stayed village idiots, they all started to find others, and then they got so big they started to feel a little legitimate, so more people started joining, and that's now why we have a lot more hate on the internet. These things were always there, but I feel like they were more, fringe, more sort of on the fringes of society before, but now they're kind of becoming more and more mainstream. So these monocultures that we have are really toxic. Now, how does that relate to AI and where it's going in the future? Well, these same companies are in control, and these same massive, few billionaires, they're going to do whatever they can to make as much money as possible. So these models, they're not true artificial intelligence, but they can be used to replace a lot of the workforce because they can allow one or two employees to do a lot more just because they can sit there and converse with their chatbot, and their chatbot can help them write code or give them information or draw artwork for them or create music for them or do any number of things like that. So I asked ChatGPT to give me an estimation of how many jobs this was going to replace by the year 2030. And this is kind of funny, so I'll open it up. And so it always has this little whatever I say could be right or could be wrong. I'm not made to do this, blah, blah, blah. But it says that it could be up to 800 million based upon some sources. That's probably a high number, but a lot of companies are even if the AI models and the chat GPT and whatnot, even if all of that stuff can't actually do the jobs that the humans are doing, companies are going ahead and replacing as many workers as possible and using this as an excuse. Yep, we don't need them anymore. Now, this is not good for society. Having a massive number of people who do not have jobs and do not have income is incredibly bad for society. And the funny part is while this may be good for next quarter's profits, once you go a few quarters and realize nobody can live in your city anymore and nobody can buy your goods anymore because nobody has any money and you have all the money, how do you continue to function? You have to create new scam economies, and it's going to eventually blow up. But they're not interested in that. And capitalists can't think that far ahead. They're legally not even allowed to think that far ahead. They just have to worry about next quarter's profits. They can't worry about the state of the universe, the state of the world, global warming, which is the term I'm still going to use even though everyone else says weather change or whatever. They can't worry about human beings at all. They can't worry about society. They can't worry about any of that stuff. They just want as much money as possible, and they don't want to pay taxes to help maintain the infrastructure of the societies that they're in. So I asked this person, I said, what are you going to do when nobody has a job and nobody can afford anything? Nobody can afford to buy your products. Nobody can afford to eat. What are you going to do? People are going to rise up and slay you in the street? The response was that they read a book, and I need to find this book because they forgot the name of it. But it said, in the future, everyone will get $2,000 to $3,000 a month, but they'll have to sign an agreement saying they will not reproduce. So that's what he thinks might happen. He wasn't sure, but that was kind of what he pointed to. So yeah, that's kind of the idea, I think, that's in a lot of extremely wealthy people and corporations' heads. What's going to happen when we get to the point where nobody can afford your stuff? They're like, well, we'll just give them money to stop procreating, and no more kids for them. Just here's a little bit of money, enough money to buy the stuff that we're doing. But really, that's a band-aid on capitalism, and it's just one more desperate attempt to extend the lifespan for a system that's so broken that it only helps the 1% of the 1% and leaves everybody else out in the cold. But they're going to put that Band-Aid on there, that UBI Band-Aid. Then we can make a totally separate video about this. So if you want to see a video where I just kind of talk about how I think UBI is really just a band-aid to extend the life of a broken system, let me know and we'll talk about that. I will link these articles in the description so you can read if you want to know more. But really, I just really wanted to make this because I see this going in a very, very negative direction. And I think that AI, there's some nuance here for this. Well, I keep saying AI because that's what they call it. I wish we had another word for it because this is not artificial intelligence. These are predictive text models and amazing database software. That's really what it is. So these predictive text models could be really cool. And there's a lot of interesting use cases for them that don't actually destroy the earth. I've seen some people even say that it's good that they can generate text-based games over and over again, but I don't think that's a problem we need to solve either. We all have a huge backlog. We don't need AI creating 1 million video games. We have 1 million video games that we need to be playing on our Steam and GOG libraries. And what about your Unreal library of all those free games? So a lot of this sounds pretty negative. And what can we do about it? That's the next chapter. I don't think there's much we can do about it, but it's important that we understand what these things are. So make sure you watch the first video where I did the 101 on just how these things work. And I also think we need to be doing things like this. We need to be suing all of these companies because really the way these things work is they look at all of our work together and they're not actually creative. None of these applications are creative. They're not making anything. When they write a story, they're not writing a story. They're plagiarizing. But they're plagiarizing at such a high level that we perceive it as creativity. It's like a chaotic level of plagiarizing. It's so, once you get to that level, it probably doesn't really matter that much. But the point is that these computer models are not creating anything. They're just using predictive text and stuff that has already existed to weave new things together by pulling a little bit of this and a little bit of that. The same thing when it comes to artwork. They look at tons and tons of artwork and they don't know what they're drawing. They're just like, okay, this is a leg, this is a hand, okay, this is a hand. Yep, that's always, there we go. Now we've got our hand model. So they put that together and they just draw it based upon the styles that are out there. And a lot of these models allow you to say, I want a dragon and I want it done in the style of Jeff D or whatever. You can type the artist's name that you want the style in, and if it's trained with that artist's information or of that the artwork, then it can mimic their style. And that's why they're getting sued, because they are pretty much robbing the artist. They're stealing their style. And it was really funny, like a few months ago, we saw that drama that went down on Reddit where one of the artists got in trouble on the art Reddit because their artwork looked like AI. So the moderator banned them for having artwork that looked like AI. And the irony there is that the AI artwork was mimicking the artwork of the real artist, and then the real artist got banned because the artwork that was plagiarizing their work made their work look like the plagiarized work. You see how fucked that is? Anyway, as we go into the future, just know that these models are not going to be used for the betterment of society. And this can go into a whole new thing about shifting our system away from a system that is based upon lining the pockets of the ultra wealthy. That is the real problem. That's the root of the problem, is that everything we do must serve capital, and everyone who works must be exploited so that part of our labor and part of our work and part of everything we do can go to the 1%. Our entire economy is a pyramid scheme that benefits the super wealthy. That's a totally new video, totally different topic, but all of the problems that I've talked about here when it comes to social media and AI artwork could be solved if we moved away from a system that only benefits a few people. They've got so much power that it's going to be hard to do. Who knows where the breaking point's going to be. Anyway, that's enough for this video. If you have any other things you want to talk about in regards to this artificial intelligence that's not actually intelligent, but it does a pretty good job of pretending to be, let me know in the comments. The other video will be linked below, and don't forget we still have the deal going on this month. Half price mice, y'all. 50% off using coupon code HAPPYMICE over at epicpants.com. We've got this mouse, and we also have the Phoenix Swift mouse, which is 3360 sensor. Both are flawless infrared sensors, and this is a 3310 sensor, which I think feels really good. So head over there to epicpants.com and check it out.